Donald Trump says is either projection or confession. It's so funny, actually, that he's accusing others of fake news. At the same time, they're asking if he should really tell Americans that they should put disinfectant inside their body. And, you know, it bears repeating. In February, on February 27th, the president said this pandemic that's killed 50,000 people was just one person coming in from China. He said he had it completely under control. He said there was nothing to worry about. That's January 22nd. In February, throughout February, he said there was nothing to worry about. Even near the end of February, he was saying that it was 14, 15 people. Soon it would be down to 0 people. He said he had done a great job and there was nothing to worry about. In March, when Republican senators started being concerned, his quote, "Just stay calm. We have it under control. Everything's going to be fine." And he kept musing about April, how it would warm up and this would go away. He told a group of African-American leaders that in March that it would just magically go away. And here we are. Again, I said several weeks ago, we don't have to go back over the president's past statements. Let's talk about the future. Let's try to encourage him to do the right things in the future. Well, here we are near the end of April, and Donald Trump is talking about putting disinfectants and lights inside of bodies. And he's been corrected time and again this week by his doctors who are saying, yes, it's going to come back in the fall, after the president says it's not going to come back in the fall. He pushes scam drug fixes that his doctors have to correct him on. And now they're having to correct him on this latest madness. You really do wonder what's going through the minds of Republican senators and Republican members of Congress and Republicans who serve with this president. Yes, we're in the middle of what he called a war, and we have a president who is wandering off aimlessly on this pandemic battlefield, endangering so many American lives.
Well, Joe, in a rational political world of which we are not part, we're no longer a part of that. There is no longer a rational political world around us. I'll tell you what might be on their minds, the 25th Amendment, because yesterday the President of the United States actually posed a threat to public safety, to the public safety of the citizens of this country. Those were the musings of a man who has spent a whole lot of his lifetime in a tanning bed. So he's been exposed to ultraviolet rays in order to look like he has a tan all the time. Those were the irrational rants of a man who somewhere out in this country, God forbid, some adherent of his, someone who follows him closely and adores him, and there are many people like that, will take a little sip of Clorox bleach today to ward off the potential of the virus, and they will die. And then to your other point that you raised earlier, you have Dr. Birx standing there. So I pose this question to the country. How would you feel if Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci both resigned under protest that the president is acting like someone who is mad, someone who has gone temporarily insane, who is deranged, who feels cornered, who will say anything to get out of anything at a particular moment in time? Not long-term, not leadership, not looking down the road, but get out of something like right now. How would you feel if they resigned?
Well, that would be terrible news for the country, of course, and they've hung in this long. Let's hope they continue to. Here's some reaction from around the world. Headlines, newspapers: dangerous, bizarre, insane, horror. Those are some of the headlines from the papers in the UK on President Trump's suggestion yesterday that, again, injections of disinfectants like bleach and UV light into the body may treat coronavirus. He's just throwing out ideas, he says. Australia's top doctor called the president's suggestion quite toxic, and the New Zealand Herald framed Trump's comments on disinfectants as, quote, potentially fatal, saying, quote, to be 100% clear, those are not things anyone should be doing. Katty K, again, it's embarrassing that these things have to be said out loud, and I'll repeat what we said at the top of the show, that Lysol, which is owned by a British company, the British company had to put out a statement refuting what the president said. Lysol actually had to put out a statement in which it said, under no circumstances should our disinfectant products be administered into the human body. They weren't saying that because there's some crazy Tide Pod meme going around and teenagers are eating it. They're saying it because the most powerful man in the world offered it as a suggestion, just throwing out ideas, bringing ideas to the table at the podium in the briefing room at the White House yesterday.
Yeah, because we've already had a couple die from taking hydroxychloroquine under the wrong circumstances after the president stood there at the podium. And so Lysol, understandably, is saying, look, we really want to make sure that this does not come back to bite us and that people are going to take the president of the United States seriously. I think what Philip Bump said from the Washington Post in that briefing is exactly the right question. Mr. President, why are you standing up there giving the country rumors? People are looking to you in these briefings for advice and help that really works, for things that we know are proven and that we can take home with us. There is an awful lot of confusion and fear out there, and when you add this kind of rumor to it, it just adds to that. We've already seen the erosion of America's leadership when it comes to this coronavirus. There is almost nothing that the rest of the world is looking to America for guidance on at the moment. The number of deaths, the number of cases, the lack of testing, the lack of ventilators, the lack of preparation, a system that just doesn't work to cope with this, a public health system that doesn't work to cope with this, the rows between the states and the White House over who has authority, who doesn't have authority. It's been a shambles. And the country that has led the world for the last 70 years is certainly not leading the world at the moment. But when the president stands there and says this kind of thing, he's also hurting himself politically here. I mean, you look at that AP poll from yesterday, only half of Republicans have trust in what the president is saying when it comes to COVID. 22% of Republicans say they have little or no trust in what Mr. Trump is saying about the COVID-19 infection. So I'm not quite sure how he thinks he's helping himself when he riffs like this, throwing out ideas that, you know, as have you been saying all morning? I mean, it's bonkers, right? Drinking or injecting disinfectant. Anybody can tell you that.
I mean, you look at those numbers, you look at the poll numbers, for those that are listening on the radio right now, it's 47%. Only 47% of Republicans have confidence in what the president's saying. Mika, even in his own party, he doesn't even have a majority of support for people who believe what he's saying. It's just a plurality.
Well, every day, these briefings, I will say, you know, amid the controversy as to whether or not they should be